live from Chicago, the Hal Sparks radio program Mega Worldwide.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass.
Hal Sparks, actor, comedian, and multimedia personality.
And I'm all out of bubblegum.
Hal Sparks.
All right, let's do this.
Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the show. How you doing? Johnny Million is with me. What's going on, Johnny Million?
Do this.
What's the deal?
I only see the vertical stream out there right now.
It's up
Oh, no,
on.
there it is. There it is.
Yeah. There's both. I'm doing one for the older folks and one for the kids today. That's how we do. I don't feel like the kids today and their vertical thing where they only want to watch something they can, hold in the palm of their hand. I don't know. Read into that how you will. Hey now. So, but so much has happened since we last spoke, and none of it meaningful. I think my favorite phase of the World War 3.2 beta that we're apparently in is the never-ending peace. That's what it is. The peace that is always there and yet somehow always missing.
I'm tired of winning. That's
what I think the problem is. I think maybe that's why, we currently have. So this is, and please tell me if you have figured out any more of what's going on than this, because there is so much of a mixed message coming from this White House that it really is like, I don't know why they would want us all to feel sympathy for the Iranian negotiators, but that's what they're making happen, because I don't know who's going to be there.
Jared Kushner.
Oh, well, yeah. And then they might even have to talk to the RZA himself, Just Dumb Vance, right? The magic, yeah. The Captain Charisma.
King of Riz.
Yeah, David Lee Roth in a Liberace coat, with Tony Robbins' sales pitch. The man who can charm the beard off of anyone. And
I just remember him ordering donuts from that donut shop and going, how about some glaze and, whatever makes sense.
Whatever makes sense. And it was borderline, like it was a slight tech upgrade from Vincent D'Onofrio and Men in Black going, I had wonderful animals and all that sugar in water. Yeah, just asking for sugar in water, trying to pretend to be a person.
I saw an interview with him the other day where the director was like, are you going to do that the whole time? And and he was like, yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Of course.
Like, okay.
Is that going to be exhausting? Is that the word? Okay.
Yeah, it had to have been exhausting.
Oh yeah, and probably the most fun he's ever had, because that's the problem. Yeah. The problem, and I know this very well, with being a great actor is, and I'm lucky being a comedian that I get away with some stuff, is that you don't get to have any fun. You have to be dignified in all the work that you do. If you pound it onto the scene with something that just shook everybody to their core, you're not allowed to be silly. And so I love the fact that he did that. So speaking of silly. A couple of big things. Remember how where do we even start? Remember how the Trump administration was going to come in and stop the lawfare of the Biden administration, right? That's that they lawfare. The legal system was being used as a weapon against Donald Trump.
It was weaponized. I see.
Yes, against his apparently criminality. And I don't know if you're aware of this, but he was a big crook and got busted for being a crook finally after all these years. And you
gotta hate that.
Yeah, it chalked right up. I think if there's two types, if there's a legal system for the rich and the poor in this country, or a separation between the super rich and everybody else. Thank you, Al Biggery, for giving peace a chance to be on hold. With your super chat, is that they tend to find the Weinsteins and the Cosbys of the world, these sexual predators, after the natural arc of their sexual capability has waned, let's say, not at the height of their physical ability to victimize people, but long after it would take them some sort of chemical additive to be able to carry out the terrible act that they want to do, which I find particularly irritating. Like,
a little gross.
Yeah, especially if it's your TMZ or Page Six, and you manage to know who was cheating on who and what young starlet had body issues, so you could shame her into being anorexic, and you could drive like teen stars to drink and all this stuff. But you just missed the whole Weinstein thing. You just missed the whole Cosby thing, right? It just slipped by. The whole Trump thing just, who knew, right?
So close.
Okay. Yeah, so close. But in the same case, I mean, Donald Trump stacks both these things because they didn't bust him for fraud until after he was already president once and had committed decades of fraud, had literally gotten past the point where nobody except Russia was willing to give him loans anymore. Like he was in the same financial situation that the previously mentioned sexual predators I mentioned were physically, as it were. And so they got him too late, as it were, and as it will be. And so, but his revenge would be that they came after him and dared to call him a fraud, so much so that he had to set up a fraud bureau run by and by the way, make a fraud czar out of J.D. Vance instead of an anti-fraud czar. Very telling. Never mind that fact. Right. And then basically to obfuscate and weaken the word fraud because he knew it applied to him. Right. This is how he does all the time. Right. Anybody accuses him of something that he's doing, or often if he can get ahead of it. The other trick is, the accusation is coming, so get ahead of it and use that, right? And so he was pretty successful at this for a while. So much so that he was able to become president again, because some people just apparently, memory hold his entire first term and how he handled COVID and went, this is kind of an overlay about how he would handle any world emergency. This is indicative of how he would operate. But when he comes into office, he's like, I'm going to get back at all these people who are committing lawfare against me, not by cleaning up the Justice Department, making sure no one ever uses lawfare against anyone ever again, but actively committing lawfare against anybody who went after him for the crimes that he actually committed in real life, many of which he was found guilty of.
That's what you do.
Right. That's it. So if you're trying to eliminate lawfare, the way you do it is double down on it and do it worse. So he goes after Comey. That fails. He goes after Tish James. That fails. He's going after Brennan and Obama and Hillary Clinton. And that, ladies and gentlemen, will fail. It's going to fail. So like all of his flailing and accusing them of treason and, reinstituting the firing squad, which he did this week federally as the way of, doing,
I saw that. What the hell?
He not to be outdone by Idaho. He because Idaho just did that because they couldn't get the drugs necessary to do lethal injection. They have decided that their only method is that's macho enough is going to be that. It's like they're going to shoot people. Okay, and by the way, that's
gas chamber. Ugh.
Right. Yeah, and interestingly enough, the obviously a firing squad is the one thing in this country you will never run out of the necessary materials to carry out. The gas chamber and lethal injection, you might have trouble finding. Yeah, exactly. But we got plenty of bullets. Don't worry. So this is he's basically just trying to he doesn't want somebody in Idaho out MAGA-ing him. That's what that was. It's gross, but it has no bearing on reality. And so a lot of this, what was this about? Why, because it was a flood of stuff. Like this week, they're going to nuke the filibuster to get the SAVE Act through and the amendments that they want to put about transgender people into a voting rights bill just to poison pill their own thing. And we'll talk about in the next segment what's in the actual SAVE Act and how they could remedy it with one thing, but they don't want to do it because it's not actually a voter integrity bill. But the goal was, let's get Pam Bondi, she's out, but Pam Bondi in there, or originally Matt Gaetz, but then Pam Bondi. And Matt Gaetz and Kash Patel were part of the teams that, like, along with Devin Nunes and others, that went after the people who went after Trump, right? That was their gig in government during the Biden years, was that we're going to try to do everything we can to try and attack the people that we perceive attacked Trump, right? And so as soon as he got in office again, he's going to put them in place and have them go after his enemies. Well, that's not working out very well at all.
No.
And Kash Patel filed a $250 million defamation lawsuit against The Atlantic for a piece they did about him. And the stories in it are just lovely. They're
amazing.
They're amazing. Like when he thought he was fired because he couldn't remember his password.
Because he couldn't log in. I mean, I make that joke with my coworkers all the time. Like, I was locked out. I thought they didn't even tell me I was fired. Hardy har har. I'm not the director of the effing FBI.
Right, exactly. You could be for just $19.95. And then so he files this thing against them, and what comes out from it? That he did get locked out, and it confirmed a detail that was in the story that they wouldn't have known except for the other details that were there. And what he's
an SOB, huh?
Oh man, it was. And then this story comes out that he was busted for. Did you know what he was busted for? Did you hear how he had something on his record from when he was younger?
No.
Hold on. We're going to take a break. We'll be back right after this. Oh, Kash Patel, you're in trouble now. We'll be back right after this. It's Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide. Now with 100% more, Johnny Million.
That's me.
It's the democracy, stupid, with Edwin Eisendrath.
Trump's undertrained and overarmed thugs.
Hold on. I'll block that when we come back. I have to keep an eye out for it, though. Because, man, oh, shivets.
That's all.
I'll do this. Put it down like that. That way we'll at least hear Devin if it's a problem.
Okay.
Yeah. Quit it. I don't want to add a marker. What's wrong with you?
Quit it out. Quit it out.
So, yeah. It's okay if you want to look it up during the thing. I'm sure the people in the chat are saying it right now.
People in the chat say.
Oh, not a paints.
They asked AOC if they thought that Trump was going to fire Kash Patel, and she said, "I don't know. Is he out of women to fire?"
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
Oh, someone in the chat said, "Guys, it's peeping Tomming."
Well, with eyes like that, I think he could be accused of that, even if it wasn't true.
20 seconds.
Okay. All right.
Because facts matter. You're listening to WCPT 820.
Debunking the lies your uncle saw on Facebook.
Still though, you psyched me out. Johnny Million. Oh. It's a new one. Yeah. Welcome back. Hey, Johnny Million. So, did you get $250 million seems like a lot. And here's why. Because Kash Patel doesn't actually have a reputation for anything good. You know what I mean? You have to. So I would think you'd have to have a really great reputation to say that someone's done $250 million worth of damage to your reputation. It would have to, yes, your brand quality would have to be at the $250 million level, which is, that's up there. That's I mean, it's not quite NVIDIA, if you slighted their brand or whatever, but it's Dell, I don't know, Coke Zero. We put $250 million into selling Coke Zero, and you blew it for us, right?
Those old Gateway computers that look like cows.
Yes, or the Commodore 64. You know what I mean? He's got, but the Commodore 64 clearly has a better reputation than Kash Patel. So I think the primary one you would argue in court, if you're the Atlantic, is, Your Honor, I mean, do you think his reputation's worth $250 million? I think you could, because this qualifies as a slap suit just because.
I would like to present an evidence.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly right. We have all kinds of photos of him. Here's him drinking with a hockey team, right? Like, okay, so he files this thing, and his pushback, one of my favorite lines was his pushback about, I have never been intoxicated on the job. Which I got, I got to say, that leaves a lot of wiggle room for, because you could have been hung over like crazy. You could have been unconscious. You passed the intoxication phase, but you blacked out the night before and you still haven't.
Well, yeah, there's no way, there's got to be some truth to the stories of them having a hard time getting to
him. Yeah. So they had to bash his door in because there was a real
the ram, the drug dealer ram.
Right. Not a good look in general. And I would guess not a good smell either. But so they, that one, I do think my favorite is that he thought he was fired because his password didn't work because he screwed it up and there was a technical issue and he was just having a panic attack. Because here's the other, because that says two things. One is he knows he's got imposter syndrome and he's tormented by it all the time. He knows he's not qualified.
If I were him, I would too.
Yeah, you'd be like, oh my God, I can't be long for
absolute imposter. I'm the director of the FBI and I have no idea what I'm doing.
Exactly. Yeah. And you would be
taking all of their money because I don't know what else to do.
That's right. And I'm flying everywhere, even though I have nothing to do with the case and I'm gacking everything up. And I think that there's, obviously you would be like I would, taking home stationery and pens and all kinds of stuff just to remember your time there. You know what I mean? Anything that I was allowed to keep, I would just move, the flag from my office, whatever. I would just take it home on the first day, knowing that the time.
Yeah, right. This is only going to last a day, so let me just pocket all this. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. I just wanted some souvenirs, and so they, kicking in his door when he's too drunk to answer it because they think something's happened to him. Hilarious. Him, obviously getting publicly drunk at bars in DC, and he thinks he's going to be able to shut that down by scare. And this is all, I think this defamation lawsuit, honestly, is all about his attempt to discover who the sources are, to scare them into pointing out the FBI agents and other people that turned him in, when in reality, it absolutely is. I mean, it's the same thing.
Did you see the interview with the Vanity Fair reporter? I've never seen a more confident person. She was like, yeah, let's do this.
And after the lawsuit came out, after he filed it, she said 20 new sources came to her and said, oh, yeah, I'll back you up. If this goes to trial, I'm there.
Other people were like, just in case you have any hard time proving all this stuff. Yeah, now that it's really got legs.
Yeah, exactly. We need this for you. But I want to share this with you. Whoops, I put you in the wrong box there, Johnny. I got to show you on screen. That's not right. Right here, buddy. There you are.
Hi.
That, I don't know if you can see the screen on there, but boy, oh, Shevitz. When you want to read that out loud for the folks at home.
Kash Patel got arrested for public urination after a night of drinking.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. FBI director was arrested twice in his youth. Dude.
Yeah, exactly. Dude, is right. That's amazing. So Kash Patel got arrested for public urination after a night of drinking twice in his youth for alcohol-related incidents that he said were not representative of my usual conduct.
So public. Public.
First of all law enforcement officers will tell you, if you've been pulled over for speeding, you're guilty because you have sped many, many times in your life without being pulled over. This is just the time that your path crossed.
This is to make up for all those other times.
Exactly. So don't just suck it up and take one for the team. And in this particular instance, if a cop actually catches you, peeing in public.
Peeing out? Come on.
Yeah. The best, and here's the other thing. There are a lot of people, and I'm not saying this is the case, but I would not rule it out with the kind of people that Donald Trump likes and hangs around with and thinks are supportive, who get caught with their crank out in public and end up like trying to plead down to public urination. I wasn't flashing people. I had to go really bad. And the only place nearby that wasn't an active roadway was a playground. Right. That kind of stuff.
Yeah, it was an elementary school.
Yes, exactly. And so I am not even willing to give this idiot the benefit of the doubt that he wasn't busted for something even more untoward and managed to get himself out of it with, I just had to go real bad. Also genuinely hilarious. So FBI Director Patel was arrested twice in incidents involving alcohol, once for public intoxication and once for public urination after leaving a bar. He admitted in a 2005 letter about disclosures on his Florida bar application. So he had to put this in, when he was trying to pass the bar. The letter obtained by the Intercept was part of Patel's personnel file at the Miami-Dade Public Defender's Office, where he once worked. The document, written per instructions of my employer, describes incidents of alcohol-related indiscretions not uncommon for those in their teens and 20s. Two decades later, as Patel pushes back against allegations that drinking is impairing his leadership as the nation's top law enforcement agency, these arrests show how Patel's alcohol use has been subject to scrutiny before his professional life, and a gross deviation from
when I was 19 at Southern, and well in the shade, like there was no way to see what I was doing.
Yes, well, I as a Kentuckian, roadside urination is a public duty. No pun intended, I suppose.
Yeah, that's mandated. I think.
Yeah. And when we had our water at the house,
they have those police stops, where they pull people over and they test them to see if they're drinking. They actually pull you over and force you to pee on the side of the road.
That's right. Yeah. If you can write your name, you're allowed to go. But
carry on.
Right. But we had at our house, we had our water shipped in from the city that would come out once a month and put water into the cistern, and we would use that.
They delivered it by peeing on you?
No,
that's horrible.
Almost. They had a giant hose that came out of a truck. But my as the boy in the house, if we started to run out of water, if we were getting low, my mom and my sister got to use the toilet, and yours truly just went anywhere outside. Yeah. And so I was abundantly aware of, we had people who fished in the creek behind our house, and we had, like campers who would come down the road or whatever. So I was always on the eye out for, I was very aware of my surroundings, and in this particular case, I have to say, when it comes to like who Donald Trump is hiring, for all of his, he's a teetotaler, he never drank, he doesn't like it, he thinks it's unhealthy, it's so special, never mind his drug use, which has been documented well by Noel Kassler on the The Apprentice and other things, wherever basically he's been a stimulants guy his whole life, and alcohol is a depressant. That's why he avoids it, because he's trying to he's fighting his sleepiness. Especially lately, you see him doze off
very successfully.
All this week, it's happening again. So, it's weird that he hires people like Kash Patel and Keg Breath and other people who are quite comfortable, and he puts up with Don Jr.'s obvious, public substance intoxication of various sorts. Glazed eyes and rambly speech. And I mean, if there was if in college or in high school they had an award like most likely to grow up to be Ellis in Die Hard, Don Jr. would have won it every year.
Oh, easy.
Yeah, you missed some. And so, like, for all that, Trump manages to hire a dude who has that in his personnel file to be the head of the FBI, and then gets hammered overseas, takes an FBI flight over there when he has no business being there. Like the idea that the director, let me say something. The idea that the director has to be anywhere is absurd. They should be back in DC coordinating. They're not field agents. They're not door knockers and kickers. We got to take a break. We'll be back right after this. It's the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
Think Theory Radio.
Dr. Hande Ozdinler, she is a neuroscientist, but also an artist.
It seems that the larger we go, like, the galaxy, the sky, and then also as small as we go, right? The nanostructures.
All right, I'm watching my phone.
Okay, good.
There is so much resemblance, like there is a secret or there is an unspoken symmetry.
Think Theory Radio with Damian Perdue. Saturdays at 6 p.m. on WCPT 820. Check Up on Health with Chris Whitting.
John Spears, director of the American Lung Association's Health House Project, helps builders design and build homes that prevent or lessen the symptoms we feel from dust mites, molds, and pet dander. He says airborne molds can come from your humidifier.
People have tried to humidify the house in the winter because they feel it's too dry, and the humidifier itself becomes a source of pollution. The humidifier, to be effective, really needs to be cleaned on a very regular basis and disinfected, because most of them are just a wet pad.
Hold on.
Wet pad then can be a breeding ground. If you do have a humidifier,
I'm not seeing anything yet. Well, you can kind of hear it, right?
I can hear, yeah, I can hear a little bit in the background. I'm just setting up some stories to look at.
Okay. Health House, visit healthhouse.org on the internet or call your local lung association chapter. With Checkup on Health, I'm Chris Whitting.
Hey Google, play WCPT.
Streaming Chicago's progressive talk from TuneIn.
20 seconds from a second ago.
Excellent, yeah.
At 6 p.m. You're listening to Hal Sparks' radio program.
I hear it.
Worldwide.
Welcome back. So, you can smell the whiff of desperation. You can in the Republican Party right now on a bunch of fronts, because the midterms are, I insist, going to be terrible for them. I mean, historically bad. It is normal, relatively normal, with a couple of exceptions, that the party in power loses the midterms. Fairly standard belief system, and there's been a coasting kind of attitude about that over the years, that it's a self-correcting mechanism to make sure that nobody gets too far ahead of themselves or out over their skis. But this time, it's different. The polling on Trump in particular, and the fact that every member of the House and the Senate, Republicans, but for a rare few, have built their entire image, their brand on how closely they support and follow everything that Trump does. That the base is so cultish that if they veer from it at all, or even say something remotely sensible that differs from what they are, they become persona non grata. And not just because Trump's fans organically decide so, but because he tells them to attack that person. It's beyond there's like no way out in it. It's an active measure. It's, they're like, I've accidentally politically put myself between a rock and a hard place. How do I remedy this? How do I answer the questions that my constituents have versus the president's, programs that I supported that he has yet to enact or conflict? Like, they're not in a political bind like that. It's this weird all or nothing crowd that are there to possibly violently enforce his wants and needs upon these people, while the majority of the voting base of the Republican Party is now leaving him. So they are trapped by their fringe. Democrats have this problem occasionally because they confuse online talk with actual polling, and they confuse actual polling with actual people, and they get, again,
they think that the CNN 100% poll is real.
Right. And so the big thing right now is this desperate need to pass the Save America Act, the Save Act, which we call it just to irritate Trump. And the Save America Act is a voter suppression bill. The purpose of it entirely is to limit voting because of the old Paul Weyrich quote, we want, some people think we want everybody to vote. I don't want everybody to vote. As a matter of fact, our leverage in the election goes up as the voting populace goes down. Like that was from the first time I think Reagan spoke to that organization. That was the keynote speech from the guy who put it together, saying, no, you know what? I actually, we want to limit voting, period, even if it means some of our own people, because Democrats vote more than we do. And we're not really fans of voting in the first place. We don't like it. We think landowners should be in charge of these kind of decisions. That's what the Electoral College is all about. And that's, by the way, the difference between Republicans who believe that the Republic should be run in a kind of governing district kind of way where the governor looks at the voter polls and the voter rolls from their own state and goes, I don't think this person should be allowed to vote. They don't deserve the right to vote. Yeah. And I think all these people who voted were wrong. Therefore, I will send my own electors to the federal count and override what my voters in my state said because I'm the governor and I have the ability to say that. And then override their own election, I suppose, in the future. So they believe in a republic system in that regard. Basically, landowner fiefdom and serfdom. Democrats, at their root, the purpose of the party is one person, one vote. Citizens get to vote. Every citizen gets to vote. It's a right, not a privilege. Yeah. And protecting that as a right is key to the party. It's meaningful to it. And the Republicans have set about, this kind of idea that they want to lower the voter count. Here's the problem that they have, among many. The primary one is that all these ID systems that they want to put in place, the need to, even when you re-register, if you're already registered to vote and you have your real ID and you move and you re-register to vote when you get your new real ID, which you can get in your new state, and it's just as valid and has all your information attached to it, your citizenship information is in your real ID. You still have to bring your birth certificate in to re-register to vote with your ID that shows who you are and all that kind of stuff, and they're like, you need an ID to fly on an airplane, so why don't you need one to vote? Okay, first of all, you don't have a right under the Constitution to fly on an airplane. You can travel wherever you want, but that's what feet are for. If you can afford a car, you can take one, but you don't have a right to get on a public plane or a private plane without, showing who you are. You do not have a right to get on a plane. You do not have a right to shop in any store. They have the right to refuse you service. You are not constitutionally protected unless you are discriminated against for race, creed, or color, or national origin. Unless there's a specific discrimination to you, they can kick you out. And being stinky or swearing or throwing things is not a reason to be discriminated against. So you do not, this whole you need an ID to buy bread. No, you don't. You need $2. It's dumb. But here's the biggest problem that they have. Republicans, a big chunk of maggots, especially the QAnon side, don't like having an ID. That, QAnons are basically how they always used to say libertarians are Republicans that smoke weed. That used to be the description of libertarians. So the MAGA QAnon crowd are sovereign citizen adjacent. They just haven't come across a cop they have the guts to swear at yet. That's it. They're one traffic stop away from saying, I'm not driving, I'm traveling. I don't have to show you. That's right. I don't have to show you who I am. A good example was I saw, one of those body cam footages of near the border within 100 miles, the CBP has the right to ask you for ID and tell you to get out of your car within 100 miles of the border because it's people get smuggled, drugs get smuggled. This, if they're worried about your truck, the laws are a lot more lax about what they can ask you to do in a normal traffic stop within 100 miles of the border because of laws that they passed in Texas and other states. And this guy gets pulled over, full on MAGA Trump stickers all over his car. This dude ran on get these immigrants out of the place, whatever. CBP pulls him over, and he's like, you can't tell me to get out of my car at all. Just fighting it instead of going, thanks for doing your job, officer. I'll gladly get out. It's no skin off my nose. Let's get this done and move along. Of course, obviously, Trump stickers all over his car, American flag hat, a adversarial attitude towards the police officers. He had a muffler full of meth, but right? Because if you're driving around in that area, you're going to wear the mask of somebody that you think the cops would just let slide. So, and there's a lot of people in the administration and others that think that just having a MAGA hat is a KMA card. So Trump had this big panic last night and said, not saving the Save America Act will lead to the worst results for a political party in the history of the United States. An unrecoverable death wish. 3 exclamation points. Likewise, the filibuster. Terminate it now. Okay, couple of things. And this specifically, this goes out to James Woods, who has been has been all over X on this, and any maggot that is within the sound of my voice. Listen up real quick. The SAVE Act, if it was passed today and signed by the President of the United States, would not go into effect until 2027. The people that are going to be elected this fall or lose election will be sworn in or leave office before the SAVE Act goes into effect. The text of the bill means it begins in 2027. It will have no effect, none, on the midterms. The Save America Act, as the text is written, that Donald Trump would sign, and I guarantee he will sign the one, if they pass this one, he will sign it immediately, and never notice that it does not go into effect until 2027. Let me say that again. The Save America Act, if passed, even if they nuke the filibuster and do it and pass it right away, will not affect the midterms at all. And if they try to enforce it before it's gone into effect, like every other law, that will be seen as election intimidation and illegal, and it will be detrimental to their case when it does get brought into court, because it's a poll tax. You have to pay to get a copy of your birth certificate. None of them are free. You have to pay to get a passport, which is your other proof of citizenship. A real ID with citizenship, built into it that you may already have, costs money. So if you want to get, if you want to vote using the ID system that's set up in the Save America Act, you have to pay money. It will cost everyone, eventually money. If you want to change, you want to move, it's going to cost you money. The process will have cost you money. Never mind having to show up in person, take time off work, which is an economic thing anyways. But let's just say we look past that. But it's the actual cash shaking hands. That you are now charging money for people to have their rights in the United States. And the SAVE Act also, which is a violation of the Constitution. So I don't want to hear anybody that is true to the Constitution, or a constitutional conservative, any of that stuff. You are charging money to have one of their rights. And you're not offering a free option because a citizen was born here and has lived here for a long time. And the other one is, and by the way, for the record, this will affect maggots more than it will affect Democrats. This will have a negative impact on the voting power of Republicans than it will Democrats. More Democrats have real IDs already than Republicans. Republicans have a 7 to 12% problem with Real ID because their people won't get it because they think it's the mark of the beast. They think it's like they think the QR code or the
they'll be like,
magnet.
well, that's how they get you.
That's right. So they're tracking me. The government wants to track everything.
Right.
It's everything bought or sold without his mark, and so they won't get it. So even though it's a poll tax to have to pay for it because it costs you money to get one in your state, it's going to cost you a filing fee or something. At least it's never less than $20. Sometimes it's more. So that's a poll tax. That is legitimately a poll tax. That means you need to pay money to be able to have one of your rights. That's illegal, it's unconstitutional, and it's wrong. Also, if they enforce these things, if they enforce them before the filibuster, I guarantee Democrats take the Senate. We will gain seats in the Senate this fall, no doubt. But we will, if they enforce the SAVE Act between now and the election, Democrats will run the table. There will be a tsunami of Democratic voters who outnumber Republican voters that will have proper ID and proof of citizenship. That's the reality.
I hope so.
Like it or yeah, well, I know so. And again, the DNC has two jobs. The primary one, turn red districts purple, purple districts blue. That's it. You don't get any points for making blue bluer. Waste of time. You're not changing a single vote in the House or the Senate. This is a federal election. Mess around with mayors and state senates all you want to, but on a federal level, unless it's a yes to a no vote or a no to a yes vote, it's zero movement. You are not. That's not progress. It's not progressive. Also, we need to make sure everybody, regardless of whether the SAVE Act is pushed through, and again, it won't even go through till next year, has the proper ID necessary to vote. The biggest push, the new souls to the polls is souls to the DMV. That's what this summer has to be about. Everybody making sure that every voter who needs help getting it can get their ID. And if they can't afford it, until the Supreme Court takes this up and it ultimately loses, we have to, we'll do, Kickstarters or whatever it takes, GoFundMes to make sure that everybody in a county that doesn't necessarily have ID gets their ID.
Yeah.
But we're already there. We're already at a plurality of IDs in the real ID world over Republicans. And that's why the Senate is dragging its feet. That's why the Senate doesn't want to pass this. The Senate, why would Thune, turn on his, the Republicans? Why would he endanger himself with Trump's wrath, not passing the SAVE Act? Why would he not bring it to a vote? Because he knows it will do more damage to Republicans than it will to Democrats. Trump doesn't know this.
That.
Yep. We'll be back right after this. It's the House Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide.
It's the Democracy, Stupid, with Edwin Eisendrath.
Is I'm a there, but
didn't fail to build a palace. They chose not to build a palace. George Washington designed the Oval.
Yeah, there it is. Let's see, bring this up.
So that hierarchies of rank weren't built into gatherings in the space. Trump's golden ballroom is the architectural repudiation of those egalitarian.
Oh, I see. It can't be in.
At 1 p.m. on WCPT 820.
Whoa there. Where do you think you two are going? This is a union-only job site.
Hey, I'm from ABOC, a leading business and labor union bank founded over 100 years ago in Chicago.
Good to know. We only let union members on this site.
ABOC was founded by labor unions.
59 days after we stood in this office and President
union employees to this day.
Okay, you've got my attention.
Amazing.
No, labor union banking requires experience and expertise.
Tell me about it.
Get the advantage of our oversight.
What did he say? How much?
I didn't hear. I'm keeping an eye on the phone.
Yeah, he said something seconds.
Investments and construction loans like this one.
You worked on this job?
We sure did.
Just ask your boss.
Okay, why didn't you say so? Come on in.
Thanks.
Hey, don't forget your hard hats.
Trust ABOC, the bank for labor unions.
Hey, learn more at ABOC.com. ABOC is the brand name for Amalgamated Bank of Chicago. Member FDIC.
WCPT 820, Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter.
Hey, Johnny.
Now, back to Hal Sparks on Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT.
So, hey, Johnny Million, you ever have trouble getting to sleep? You ever have, mild insomnia?
No, I can always
anything?
get to sleep right away, but sometimes I'll wake up in the middle of the night.
Yeah, same here. I've always been really good at conking out, unless I've got a project that I'm working on and I just feel like grinding at it, and I start talking myself into bed, and I'm like, I should probably go to sleep just so I can, I'm not getting my best out of this probably at this point, so I should probably get up and start fresh in the morning, but I just don't want to. I'm into it, right? And I'm a bit of a night owl, as it were. I like, working well into the evening. Sometimes it's the only time I can get normal housework done. I will do some desk organization at 2:00 in the morning. You wouldn't believe. Like,
oh, nice.
2, 3, yeah. Laundry, the whole thing. But when there are those times where you need to get to sleep and you can't, what, besides a rubber mallet, and maybe some Tylenol PM or something, I don't know. What are your options?
I'll put on a podcast or something. I'll put in earbuds.
Sure. Well, I'm gonna put video on the screen on the live stream at infotainmentwars.com. Like, subscribe, give a thumbs up, support the show, etc., etc. Follow me on Twitch, twitch.tv/HalSparks, and the like. If I may. And Johnny Million, I want you to describe what you're seeing here. This is This is
He's so he looks like when my cat Foster is staying up for no good reason.
Yeah.
Just like, put your head down, buddy. Oh, come on, just lie down.
Just let it happen. Just let it slip into that, into that warm good night. So for those of you who don't know, Trump, Captain Droopy Face, was back at it, sleeping through a meeting this week, and it was like you could tell that the people behind him at one point, like, he's so far leaning forward that it looks like he's gonna, he's like, when someone's on the bus and you're like, okay, they're going, and then they just yank themselves up. There are a couple of times when he gets close to it, and you can tell the people around him know it, because they will intentionally get louder, right? Just to kind of like, and he'll wake up because he'll hear the words or whatever, or they'll say, that's why President Trump, like, oh, okay. Anyways, and he's nodding off again and again, and it's
not a good look.
Rough. And I wish that, I don't wish this. This would be terrible. Can you imagine if flattery was your NyQuil? If flattery,
and that's the thing. Everybody around him is like, and another good thing that President Trump has done,
right?
But like, all they're doing is like saying stuff he wants them to say all around
right?
him.
Because they're trying to keep him awake. That's honest to God. They, part of the flattery is keep him interested. He's losing interest, and the only thing he's interested in is himself.
It's himself.
Yeah, and his historical context, which has shifted over time. Before, it was just his prowess as a businessman and as a deal maker and blah, blah, and that's enough. But now it's historical, once-in-a-lifetime amazing. Well, that sounds like the kind of thing that a dying man starts, and specifically a dying egomaniac starts to fixate on. That, he's been very much into his legacy, if there's going to be one, in the last,
that's
few
why
months.
He's saying, oh, well, you're going to put up a statue of me. Who thinks like that?
Me. But I mean, in the long term, it's because that drives my behavior. You know what I mean? I want to act in such a way that there's a chance I might get a statue, not like, you guys owe me a statue. Like that. That's very different.
No, it's more like, you guys should get me a statue and I'll give you that funding.
That's right. That's exactly it. Yeah. And if you don't give me a statue, I'll just name stuff after myself. Bridges, the Kennedy Center, the reflecting pool between the Washington Monument and the Lincoln Memorial. You know, like that's going to be his thing. And by the way, for the record, as soon as his name goes up, the next time a sensible Republican or any Democrat is in there, it's coming right down.
Oh,
Goodbye.
Yeah.
Right down. Like everybody knows it's right back to the Kennedy Center as soon as he's out of there. Like even JD Vance will do it. Like on his way out the door. You know, it's silly. So yes, and somebody put in press needs to ask Trump real questions. That's actually the only thing that keeps him awake is when he gets adversarial and mad at the press for asking him, for just calling him out on his BS.
Yeah, for asking a real question.
Right.
And he gets rude.
His anger will keep him awake. But this is getting increasingly bad because not only is the president's schedule is awful to start with. It can it's fits and starts. You're catnapping for 4 years, essentially. So it's difficult. It ages everybody. Right? Even if you started out really spry, it's going to wear on you because of the decisions you are tasked to make. You can outsource a certain amount of it. And if you have good, like people skills and the like, and you can delegate, you can establish a firewall of stuff. But if you're a micromanager like Trump and you're afraid someone else will get credit or will gain some sort of accolades or ground for it, you have to be there to make it look like you're making all the decisions, even if you aren't. My favorite part of that, though, this week was that, Trump said he kicked Epstein out for Mar-a-Lago for being a creep, which, of course, not only is it not true, he never kicked him out. The one fallout they did have was about a piece of property, not about him being a creep. And he apparently only got mad because Epstein was hiring away staff, because if you sexually exploit a teenager and the person that you poached them from thinks that you're poaching them, then that means they were busy sexually exploiting that teenager.
Right.
If you're doing the same thing they were doing, that's stealing an employee to them. Right? It's weird. Like, so, but, the overall, I mean, there's so much of this and it's so absurd. His drive to like claim control of everything. He ate that lie. Everybody had a well-protected lie. He's a creep. He kicked him out. Chung was saying it. Glenn Beck was saying it. Megyn Kelly was even saying it. They were all saying it. Trump kicked him for being a creep. Caroline Leavitt, it was her favorite line about it. And then Trump throws a monkey wrench in the whole thing. And everybody knows it's false now. And not only, again, he didn't kick him out for being a creep. He didn't kick him out at all. They had a mild disagreement for a few months, and then he was back. He was never a member, was never asked to leave. Never. Everybody at the, people had testified to the FBI in 2019 that Epstein was never promises. He was never told not to show up. He kept coming back. He was there for events all the way through the inauguration and the first New Year's when Trump was in office the first time. So it's all a farce. On top of that is the one save that Trump had. He really thought he had this save. Was maggots were telling everybody a story that Netanyahu forced Trump to go into this war. He whispered in his ear like Ray Epps and made him do it. Or he's blackmailing him, which is bad anyways.
Right.
Because if you can be blackmailed to that extent, maybe you shouldn't be president. That's a thought. That's what security clearance is for. Yeah. So clearly, but that was that worked. It worked. It was a good sales pitch with the maggots. That's all they wanted. It's not his fault. He was hypnotized. And, Tucker Carlson even said it was witchcraft, that there was a spell cast on Trump. He couldn't, which again, if he's that dough-headed, what is he doing in charge of the free world? But yeah. And then Trump comes out and posts this week, I decided to go into Iran. Israel did not make me go into Iran. I decided on my very own because of everything I know about this and things I felt for a very long time. Well, my question is, well, then why didn't you bring them up during the campaign trail when you're saying, in the campaign trail, you're saying no new wars, no new regime change, all that. If you were like, we got to get Iran. I've been chafing at this bit for 40 years. Nobody's had the guts to do it.
Yeah,
Elect
no new
me.
wars after we invade Iran.
Right. We'll be back right after this. It's the Houseworks Radio program, Mega Worldwide.
Driving it home with comedian and activist Patty Vasquez. Whoa. Patty Vasquez, weeknights 5 to 7 on WCPT.
Patty Vasquez. Patty's lovely. She's good people.
We do love Patty.
So we do love Patty. So, let's see. And now I gotta put in Phil and Johnny. Okay, preview mode. We go to this, and then.
MEC's Monica Alba reports this puts so much about this war up in the air.
It is completely unclear.
There's Johnny.
The White House now is going to try to frame this as being able to then make another deadline that they will have to announce about a decision to see if there's going to be additional military action or not. But I think we hear you.
We see you, Phil. By the way.
Couldn't send his negotiators, his vice
I'm good. And then let me bring you in. Ta-da! Back to live mode. Now you're up in your hair. There he is.
There we
go. Yeah, hold on. I don't know why there's not a.
President Trump says Iran made the request through Pakistan and will hold its attack on that country until such time as the leaders and representatives of Iran can come up with a unified proposal. Virginia voters have approved a redistricting referendum that would allow Democrats to redraw the state's congressional maps. Projections indicate the measure, which could give Democrats a 10-1 advantage in the upcoming midterms, has narrowly passed. Democrats say it's necessary because Republicans are doing the same thing in states like Texas, but Republicans say this is different. Democrats are amending Virginia's constitution. Violent acts in the U.S. are believed to have influenced the gunman who opened fire at the famed Teotihuacan pyramids in Mexico yesterday.
Teotihuacan.
A woman was killed. Several American tourists injured in the shooting.
Teotihuacan.
Today, Mexican President Claudia
also, like
psychological issues and was influenced by incidents that occurred abroad.
But what? You don't get to. No, man. Sorry. As bad as stuff is in the world, you know, you don't get to do that. You don't get to say, "Oh yeah, hey, I shot this place up because I was inspired by people overseas, so it's kind of their fault."
Right.
Get out of here.
Weekday afternoons from 5 to 7.
Patty Vasquez. All right.
Driving it home with Patty Vasquez.
Patty Vasquez. Oh, wait. He already has one. Your name is there.
Chicago's Progressive Talk.
Oh.
Views with Richard Chew.
So here's what I've been recommending to politicians, to candidates for a while. Yeah, state the obvious. This is messed up. This is a problem. Here's what I stand for. Here's what I'm going to do about it.
Excellent. All right. Almost there.
They understand. They see what's happening. They put themselves in the cauldron of what it will take to fix it. And then who's going to be the person that's going to reap the benefits of that activity.
Richard Chew. Weekday mornings at 6 on WCPT 820.
Take every road by storm and feel the exhilarating performance in a brand new Porsche from the Porsche Exchange in Highland Park. Browse and test drive our extensive selection, like the 2026 Porsche Macan Electric. Right now, lease the 2026.
Boy, Jen XOXOXOX just gave out like 1 million YouTube memberships.
Oh, thank you so much. Sorry, down payment for my space in the landscape channel. Okay, cool.
This is WCPT 820, where facts matter.
You're listening to the House Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
I've had people walk out of me before, but not when I was being so charming.
Video streaming at housesparks.com.
I don't care for you or for the putrid sludge you're troweling out.
Puss-faced little pimp stick.
True progressive talk.
Might be a good time for you guys to give up.
So, Phil Ittner joins us live from Kyiv. Appreciate you being here, host of On the Edge, newly back on its legs, which is great. The show is now back to putting out episodes after Vladimir Putin did his best to eliminate the electrical grid in Kyiv and shut down, I think specifically to shut down Phil's show. I'm going to call it. I think that's what most of the attacks were about, quite frankly. And Johnny Million's still with us. Are you live streaming today after the show, or did you do that yesterday? What was your...
Not today. No, This is a week off for Johnny.
All right. Sometimes you need to. Sometimes you got to rest those fingers. Otherwise you get, carpal tunnel or whatever it is. Anyways, welcome, Phil. And obviously we have a lot to talk about. And let's just start with how things are in Ukraine with you, and then I'll get into kind of the breakaway stories about Russian oil and the economy there and all that kind of stuff too.
Generally okay here. Had a decent sized attack last night, but the air defense was able to take care of it, so no real problem there. We've had the Kiev security conference has been going on this week. I think it wrapped up yesterday. A lot of dignitaries here, a lot of very important, both people in the diplomatic sphere, but also military leaders attending, talking, holding conferences, meeting one another, that sort of thing. Reports I'm getting are that it was more or less a positive atmosphere, that the Europeans seem to be getting their act together. Not least of which with a $90 billion euro promise for support, and the fact that Viktor Orban was voted out, who's been a real problem for Ukraine. So the fact that he's out, that was good. But it was predominantly a European heavy event. So there's that. But the Europeans do seem to finally have woken up to the fact that they've got to get serious about this. So cautious optimism. The Ukrainians are making progress in certain areas of the country. Nothing, enormous. No major advances, but they are advancing.
Right.
Down in the southeast, in particular, the Russians have been repulsed from a number of their territorial holdings. So, at least for right now, while nobody's moving quickly, it does look like the momentum is with Ukraine.
Yeah. So there's been a lot of stuff happening in terms of I think Merz, the German chancellor, said while it's impossible to get them into the EU, Ukraine into the EU quickly, because it's a big process. They've thought about bringing Zelensky in into all the meetings. They just wouldn't have voting rights right away. That they would be in on all the conversations with the EU. It would take them time to join, which is a big step forward as well, and certainly not one that that Russia's fans of. The issue, I think, is that's whether they're part of the EU or whether they're part of NATO. Quite frankly, there's a similar kind of security relationship as an EU nation as NATO. There's not the Article 5 directness, but as a member of the EU, there's this understood that they would kind of support each other if they were attacked, in the same way that, I guess the NATO countries jumped in with us after 9/11, even though that attack had nothing to do with Europe, and they were, they went into Afghanistan and Iraq with us, for example. So it's not out of the question that would act as sort of a de facto backdoor way of getting the other support that they wouldn't get from NATO. They're getting arms from NATO specifically, as a sort of almost regifted from the United States to get around Trump's limitations that he wants to put in place, and that Republicans have already signed off on. That mismatch between what Republicans are for and against right now. They're doing that. This would be the other step where economically, loan-wise, relationship-wise, on both on a, I suppose, a cultural and financial, a FinSec way, that Ukraine could start its process of integrating into the EU. Because they're going to have to. Once this is over, they're going to be a bigger powerhouse than Germany.
Yeah, no, they're gonna have a if they can tackle their corruption problems, and then there's going to be a period of recovery. But ultimately, the country itself has every possibility in the world of having a GDP that would, challenge any other European country. So they're going to be part of the European Union. As far as a security alliance has been, that's been proposed for years. I mean, even before the full-scale invasion of Ukraine. I remember Guy Verhofstadt, who is a leader in the European Union. I believe he is either Belgian or Dutch. I think he may be Flemish. But regardless, anyhow, he's been an outspoken proponent for Europe having its own security alliance that would maybe be fall under the umbrella of NATO, or would be independent, but that it wouldn't just be NATO that Europe relies upon to provide its security. So anyhow, that might very well happen. There'll be some sort of European security alliance, and if that happens, then Ukraine is absolutely 100% going to be part of it, because their production capability, if nothing else, is going to be really important for Europe. So
equal to or greater
than to be part of
than any current nation, and with the potential for growth that is, I think, maybe second only to Germany or the UK in terms of all the European Union nations, and probably would eclipse Germany's in a very short order.
Yeah, I mean, it's production for sure. Poland might lie in there somewhere. Some of the Scandinavian countries might lie in there, as their capacity and their quality of their equipment, the sophistication of their equipment. Poland buys a lot of its stuff, so that's their NATO ascension for both the Baltics and the Poles meant that they got their Sears catalog from the Pentagon every year and went through it and went, oh, we'll have 10 of these, and we'll have 20 of these, and because they can. That's part of the thing about being in NATO, is that once you cross that threshold, they don't quite have selling weapons to fellow NATO nations is a heck of a lot easier than if you're a partner state or whatever, like Ukraine is. So you literally can, if you're a Pole or an Estonian defense ministry, you can literally open up a catalog and say, without jumping through hoops, without there are always some limitations that kind of we put on some of our higher end, because we don't want them being sold on to a third country and things like that. But essentially, if you're a NATO member state, you can you can just order what you want. You don't get double checked. So that's why it scares Moscow so much, because if Ukraine became part of NATO, they would be going shopping first thing. They'd be opening that catalog and buying a whole bunch of stuff.
Right. The one of the things that I enjoyed this week was we've seen these Russian mill bloggers that were in the in Ukrainian territory, And they were for a long time selling the war, in a way that would make, Jimmy Dore proud. And then eventually even they started to turn on Moscow, started to go, this is not going, not even like Vladimir Putin needs to be deposed. Somebody needs to get tougher and move in here. We need, that not even, Mother Russia deserves someone stronger. None of that. Just a little bit of whinging. And then they started getting rounded up. Now they're just straight up memeing all over the place. Before we take a break, I would love to show you, if I may. This is let's see, is this what? Let's see if it's this page. Nope. Hold on one second. It's there is one of the guys, like they've started memeing fairly heavily. I'll show this on the stream and then I'll bring you back in. This is a picture of orcs from Lord of the Rings. And the caption says, girls on the beach in Tuops, because they're covered in oil because the oil blew up and rained down upon them. So that's it has gotten so bad that even the mill bloggers are passing around those kind of memes amongst themselves. It is very similar to what we're seeing happen with maggots in terms of Donald Trump, that a lot of them are getting pretty comfortable with joking at his expense, where they absolutely were not before. And the irony is we've been looking at tactically and materially, and as far as, military hardware and missiles and all the stuff that would turn the war in Ukraine's direction. And the irony is it may boil down to the fact that they may lose the meme wars within their own, fake indie sock puppet media system. We got to take a break. We'll be back right after this. It's the Houseworks radio program, Mega Worldwide. Built. Hold on. Oh, that's it. There it is. I was like, why is this not showing the... Yeah, so that's the...
Out Chicago.
I'm saying it again. Equal rights for others does not mean less rights for you.
Yeah, so this says when girls on the beach of Tuops in Russia, because they blew up an oil... Yeah, the...
Russian, that's not Ukrainian.
Yeah, exactly. That's these are Russians memeing about what happened in their own country, which is a very distinct difference from, what was happening previously. Oops, hold on. Yeah.
Let's look at some feminine care products that support the Democrat Party.
Oops.
Always in Tampax.
Why is this? There we go.
Procter & Gamble as a company does not give to politics. However, some of
There you
their
go.
senior leaders do, and they tend
Here
to
we
be
go.
more Democrat, as in 2024, 61% of their
Yeah,
donations
they
went to Democrats. Thinks and Kotex.
this is
Thinks and Kotex are owned by Kimberly Clark. The company does not give to politics, but some of their senior leaders do.
It's another one that was posted,
Went to Democrats.
which is the fire at the oil depot led to the spill of naphtha. That's the plasticizing agent that comes from whatever. And so this is a King Kong pulling a big snake full of naphtha, I guess, out of the thing. And then you're in Tuops. Are you stupid? Yes, that's the thing. You're in Tuops. Are you stupid? Yes.
This has been WCPT telling you.
About 20 seconds now.
Okay.
You're listening to WCPT.
Tuops was flooded with naphtha.
This is Tom Hartman, and you're listening to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide, on Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT.
So, this week I showed the second video from the Trump White House where they clearly used AI to either clean up or create out of whole cloth a video of him reading a Bible verse in one and talking about housing and how he's going to save the housing market in another, where they literally took AI and attempted to make him look coherent when he was forced to do something he just has no interest in, which is caring about other people. And it's a situation where AI is trying to be used to kind of clean up after Trump. And obviously he's, there's been a lot of AI images of him. I have famously made many AI images of him, not necessarily in thumbnails, but in spoof images I put online and the like. And now that's happening to Vladimir Putin in Russia via the internal people working. And by the way, this may be the very reason why they've been trying to shut down Telegram beyond everything else. I mean, obviously the coordination of protests is impossible without it. Obviously they could blame it on we got to stop terrorists, and that's how they speak amongst themselves, whatever that is. Thank you, Surrender Monkey. Appreciate it. But a big part of it is it's embarrassing, and they really aren't very good at it. This is TWAPs in 2026. This is a guy in like full blackface, I guess, because they're getting this ad says Russian responsibility, Coca-Cola, the best remedy to remove oil stains. There's a woman pouring Coke on her car to get the oil off her car because it is raining oil in this town of TWAPs because the Ukrainians were able to hit it. And again, these are not memes from Ukraine. These are internal to Russia, and that's a very big difference.
Oh yeah.
You know, and I don't doubt that some of them may even have originated from, you know, crap stirring Ukrainian accounts that are in there intentionally, but that doesn't make them go viral. That's the difference. The fact that a Ukrainian could make something like this, certainly, and they could certainly, I guess, get an account on one of these things and try to sneak it in there. But making all the other Russians repost it and sign on to it and you know, crow about it themselves, that's impossible without the sentiment being real. And we're getting these with the sort of Sleepy Don videos in the United States right now, and maggots themselves putting out pictures of Donald Trump, you know, licking, like sleeping on his desk with drool coming out of his mouth because he was falling asleep in a meeting last week. Now, that's something I would do? Yes. Is it something Johnny would do? Yes. We didn't have to, though, because a maggot did it. That's the shift. There's a sea change about this that I think is very striking, especially when it comes to Putin, who will, you know, chuck you out a window. The question is like, how are the Ukrainian people feeling about this, and how are they looking at the Iran war in some ways, and you know, where the attention's off them, and certainly Putin's taken advantage of that while the attention's been on Iran or even on Israel, right? He's taken advantage of that in the past, and he's certainly trying to hit more civilian targets, but he's not being as successful. I mean, if Iran's running out of drones and munitions, that means Russia's running out of drones and munitions because they're one of the suppliers. The Ukrainians hit the Iranian Shahed drone factory that the Iranians had built for the Russians to make their own Shahed drones.
Yeah, and Zelensky has been to the Gulf at least 2 or 3 times since the crisis, since Trump started this crisis, because he's going to these Gulf states and he's saying, hey, we actually have a surplus of drones that are no longer applicable for our conflict because the drones that the Russians and we are using on our front line are, 2 or 3 generations ahead of where we built a whole surplus. We can't use those surplus drones because they're they don't work for our theater of war, but they would be very good for you to protect your oil fields against Shahed drones or whatever else, that Iran throws at them. And he went to Saudi Arabia, he went to Qatar, I think he went to the UAE, and he very shrewdly,
very smart.
It's being perceived here in Ukraine by even by critics of Zelensky is like, well, that's a smart thing to do. Now you take advantage of that because not only do you earn money, you make money, you sell, you export these weapons, and they give you money in return, but you also build goodwill with these countries, and
those
you
countries
start
bend Trump's ear. Those are the countries that are bending Trump's ear. Trump has he's got a financial relationship with the UAE and with Saudi Arabia on his own personally. He certainly thinks the sun shines out of the MBS's backside. He quotes him all the time with that whole "you're the hottest country in the world and you were a dead country" nonsense. And if that guy is seen as liking Zelensky and looking at Zelensky as an ally, and that in many ways Russia has always been an ally of Iran and therefore an opponent of the UAE and Russia, even if it was just a gentleman's disagreement as they viewed it, like we are with China and some of their proxies, where there's no expectation it will get to a hot war. But there's enough damage that comes from the Iranian side of things that Russia's support is a material one, in the same way that Russians were helping the Iranians target U.S. soldiers. And Trump still is talking about them. Now, there is breaking news-ish this morning, / yesterday, that Besson says that we are not continuing the Russian sanction relief, that those, when they expire, are not going to be renewed this week, I believe it is. Same with the Iranians. So there was an Iranian, like sanction lift that Trump did in the initial announcement of talks, and with it he hid the ones that the Russian ones, like he just kind of let them all off at the same time. Okay, apparently they're both coming back in. The quote is, Iranians, no, we have a blockade. The oil is not coming. And we think in the next 2 to 3 days, they will start shutting down production, which will be very, very bad for the wells. And the U.S. does not plan to extend the exception allowing the purchase of Russian oil and petroleum products currently at sea. And the extension of the one-time exception for Iranian oil is completely ruled out. So it's a huge deal.
Yeah. I mean, well, and the other thing that's been made obvious is that the weapon systems that we've been selling to the Gulf states, to our allies in the region, are meant to fight a different war than a drone war.
Right.
These are high ticket items meant to take out medium to large missiles, Scuds or variants thereof. And F-22s and really, really expensive stuff.
Right.
And so then not only are they burning through some very expensive equipment, the Gulf states, here comes Zelensky saying, you know what, we can give you capacity to defend yourself, and we'll do it at a fraction of the cost that the Americans will do. And also, we won't place any strings on it. We'll you do with it with what you will, sort of thing, which is going to be really attractive for a lot of those countries. So, I'm sure Lockheed Martin and Raytheon aren't exactly thrilled, but then, Rheinmetall in Germany probably isn't thrilled.
Right.
But this is what the Ukrainians do. The Ukrainians are fighting a 21st century war. And most Western arms producers are still doing these, really, really big, expensive, high-ticket items. And that may not be the way the war evolves.
Right.
It might be quantity over quality. We'll see. I mean, I would not chuck quality out of
parallel.
the
Right. I think it will be a parallel approach. But you can't have that gap in the disposable part of things, because it would be like fighting a thing with only artillery and not grenades, for example. There's an element of both serve a different theater purpose, and again, I do think we're going to be moving towards more autonomous and drone-like things again, because drones don't come home in a flag-draped coffin and they don't have weeping widows and children. That's just the reality. Any president is going to rather send that than send your own people. There will be times when there is no other option. And I think Trump is rapidly approaching that. And whether they like it or not, if Trump wants to jumpstart this thing, getting the nuclear dust or any other nonsense, or finishing off the regime so that they take out the IRGC leadership like Yehidi or whatever, those are going to take troops. They're going to take troops. They're going to have boots on the ground in the country, either ours or the Israelis, or more than likely both. Whether we announce them or not, whether we're truthful about them being in country or not, that's a whole other conversation as well. But we're sure going to find out about them if something bad happens to them. And that's where I think Trump would rather go in loud and lose a few people than go in quietly and lose them all. I'm dead serious. I think that's clearly how he thinks, which makes him, fundamentally different than Putin in that regard, where Putin is just, he just dismisses the lives of anybody that ain't him or his. So, but we
could probably send in some covert teams.
Yeah.
Obviously airborne would be first deployed. Marine expeditionary forces would be first deployed. But no matter what the Americans do, there will be a period of buildup. There will have to be a period of buildup. And so we'll all see it coming from a mile away. And I think it'll be, if we start building bases somewhere in the region, and I don't know who's going to let us do that, but it's going to be, alarm bells are going to be going off all over the place, and it'll come down like a ton of bricks on Trump. So I don't know. I just he screwed up. He screwed up. He thought he could really get away with this quick in and out quickly and all that, and it ain't going to happen. And we're not sending tens or over 100,000 soldiers to Iran. It's that's
we'll
like
talk about that when we come back. Hit the like, share the show, etc. We'll be back right after this. This is the Housemarks Radio program, Mega Worldwide. Johnny Million's got some questions. I have no doubt.
I got a couple.
Yep, we'll be back right after this.
Nope.
I'm trying to
the latest politics.
We both took an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
Global news.
We do know one thing. This tragedy would never have happened but for Russia's needless invasion of Ukraine.
And business updates.
These are banks that people rely on to get cash, and we need to make sure that they are protected.
Okay. Bring back in here in a second.
Chicago's Progressive Talk.
With other language learning apps, I was just playing games. I wasn't really learning. Babbel's different.
Babbel was designed by over 200 language learning experts to be the most effective way to learn another language.
Every time I open the app, I can choose to work on my writing, speaking, or listening. And it saves my mistakes for me to review, so I'm constantly improving. Before Babbel, I thought I just wasn't good with languages. But now I'm speaking French. Tout ça, c'est grâce à Babbel.
20 seconds.
Cool.
Sign up at Babbel.com. BABBEL.com.
Alexa, play WCPT.
WCPT from TuneIn.
You're locked into the Hsrpm radio program, Mega Worldwide.
So to your point, Phil, there were, we'd need somewhere in the order of like 150,000 troops to invade, Iran minimum, even if we're doing a light force into this situation, even if we're just, Tehran and a couple of other sites and just hitting military places and hitting and bugging out, like not staying. You'd need at least 150,000. Right now, we have somewhere in the order of 20,000 troops, depending on who you believe. It might be slightly higher than that. There might be a covert movement of more than that, pushing it. I think if we see anything even remotely close to 30,000 50,000 troops, if they start eking towards that number where you're stacking who's all there, I think there's a very strong chance that would be a sign that Hegseth and Trump and others think that this is the force with the Israelis that we could go in with that would be, small and efficient, like Venezuela, amaze everyone at how few soldiers you needed to pull this off. Like, I feel like whether it's true or not, whether they're capable of it or not is another conversation. But I feel like that's where, their head is.
Yeah. No, I mean, and also, these things do also have a tendency to take on a life of their own and gain momentum, and you can easily lose control, and then, if we got 50,000 in there, we might as well, let's go to 75. Well, if the 75's not doing it, let's go to, 100, 120, this kind of like, it's a slippery slope. I don't think, we'll see. I don't know. I don't think America has the stomach for a direct confrontation with.
I agree, but I don't think what we have the stomach for matters anymore. I don't think Trump is operating on the idea that what we can put up with. I think he thinks he can brute force this into the American psyche. That's what he's done with it so far. He's everything he's trying to do with MAGA to get them to like the initial bombing, and this is what he thinks he can do to the American public. And if there is an element of if you're going through hell, keep going. That he might buy into in this. And just because, I keep saying this, but it's true. Just because it's stupid doesn't mean it's not the plan.
Yeah.
These people are so high on their own supply and keg breath, is while he might not be intoxicated by, alcohol anymore, he certainly is by power and some sort of religious, I don't know, rapture-esque feeling that he has about he's in charge of the end times. He's become, he sounds a lot like Martin Sheen in the Dead Zone. The missiles are away, hallelujah. And he talks like that already. And he's, and he's talking to Trump like, we're locked and loaded, sir. We're ready to go. The first time we can really get these guys. And Trump keeps telling that story about how Dan Cain apparently took a 4-year mission to wipe out ISIS and turned it into 4 weeks, which is not true at all. It's just garbage. It's just the same thing he said about the Fed building this week. Like, he includes the price tag of 2 other buildings that were already completed years ago in the price tag of the building that Powell is doing right now. It's insane. It's base math. But he's selling that to maggots and they're lapping it right up in theory. The war's different, though. They're not buying it, it seems. And they're having to eat their own, whether it's Megyn Kelly or Tucker Carlson or whoever else, to try and stifle this situation, which, again, is very similar to the Russian mill bloggers who have suddenly started memeing Putin and posting pictures of him, covered in oil. So let's get some of the questions.
There's no way to do Iran with a light touch. It's
right.
It's a huge endeavor, and for an endeavor like that, you have to have the country behind you. And it's not. And I get your point that he may not care, but he'll care when people are taken to the streets, and they will take to the streets.
Right, and I think that question about nukes had a lot to do with that as well. Because if you think you can do it with a light touch, you're backed into a corner, and your option is spend the next 4 months loading 200,000 people into boats and on airplanes and sending them over there and totally telegraphing the fact that you are starting a very long-term Afghanistan, Iraq style war. The blowback will be so gigantic. His gut response very well may be, all Moabs or a tactical nuke. And that's why the reporter asked him about whether he would nuke Iran because of his civilization ending comment last week. Let's get some questions from the chat room for you, though, because I don't want to just eat their time as well.
We've only got a couple so far. I've got Ed Brayman asks, can you ask Philip if the land bridge and train ferries are gone now?
No, the land bridge between mainland Russia and Crimea is still intact. It's my knowledge the bridge that they keep building and all that's continuing at a pace, that it's functioning at least on some sort of nominal level. The Ukrainians have not put the land bridge under threat yet. I mean, that's where they're making their advances. You can either make an advance, if you're Ukraine, you either push into Donbass from a northern position heading south, or you go for the land bridge and Crimea by going mostly east, southeast. And that's, it seems, where Ukraine is placing most of its offensive capabilities, and that is to try and push towards Crimea. Look, I think there's a very good chance that at some point the Ukrainians are going to be able to cut off the Crimean Peninsula, and that's going to be a huge game changer for the war because it'll be such a blow to Moscow and to Putin. When it gets to a point where you can't deny that you've lost Crimea, if you're Vladimir Putin, you're in real trouble. So I think it gets to that point at some point. The land bridge is going to be the tougher part of that. The bridge, the Kerch Strait Bridge, is coming down. That's not a question. That will happen at a time of Kiev's choosing. But the capacity is clearly there. So, at some point they're gonna have to deal with the fact that they've lost Crimea, and that's going to be a real bitter pill for Vladimir Putin to have to swallow.
Is there another one, Johnny?
Yeah, well, he's got a follow-up. He said also, did Ust-Luga burn to the ground?
I don't know if it fully burnt to the ground. I know they significantly damaged it. I don't know if there are any facilities that are still working, that are still functioning there. But yeah, this is thousands of kilometers away from Ukraine, and they were still able to seriously damage it. And the pictures and the video from there are astounding. Fire, these plumes of smoke and fire. So I don't know if anything was left standing, but it was clearly significantly damaged. So even if it is operating, it's operating at a 5% capacity, 10% maybe if they're lucky.
I've got a question from Nick Rich is asking, can you ask Phil if the weather has been a curse for the troops?
It was a tough winter, but we've gotten through it. We're on the other side of the Rasputitsa, which is the time of mud, which is when the land, frozen land, kind of warms up and it becomes this sticky mud that just, it makes moving almost impossible. We're on the other side of that as well, so we're headed towards the kind of summer fighting period, and we'll have to see what happens. I mean, there's lots of talk of a new Russian offensive that's being put together. The Ukrainians have been digging in. The Ukrainians are making, as I say, progress, albeit incremental, down in the southeast. So we'll have to see what the fighting season looks like as we go through the rest of spring and go into summer, and then head back into the more difficult and cold weathers. But for the most part, it's my understanding that the Ukrainian troops made it through the winter and are doing okay.
Right. Real quick, the economically, Russia is, last year they had I think 1% growth, which a lot of people thought was exaggerated anyways, sounded like even puffery just to try and keep that. According to reports now, as of the beginning of Q2 2026, they are at 1.8% contraction, meaning that they have gone almost 3% in the other direction. If that first number was true even, and that's the kicker, whether that was honest or not is another, the original one. If it is, giving them benefit of the doubt, it's even worse that they slid to 1.8. If it had just been 0, it's less of a slide, right? So, 1.8% contraction in the first quarter alone. And that as they shift, there's a bunch of like the articles that are coming out in terms of, Russia are, why this is from I think it's Blue Wind, but it's why Putin is suddenly coming under massive pressure in his own country. This is the sort of the first time where the sanctions and all that kind of stuff, he could shrug it off. And now, like I said, with those memes that are showing up, it's sort of in line with a greater trend that seems like a big chunk of the American people have just had it. I mean, the Russian people, beg your pardon, have just had it. A Freudian slip. But it is contracting right now. They have 2% unemployment. Everybody's working. Everyone in that country is working their butt off and getting nowhere. Prices are through the roof. They have to scramble. They're hustling. They're doing every possible thing they can and just treading water in a sinkhole. It's bad. And it's the worst it's ever been. But it takes it being, I guess, this bad for people to react to Putin that way. You know, like it's so obvious now. Let's grab a break and then we'll come back with more questions from our viewers in the chat room at infotainmentwars.com or at twitch.tv/HalSparks. And then, of course, on Facebook and Instagram. You guys are all there. Say hello, and we'll be back.
Think Theory Radio.
We're joined by Allie Mae Miller, hypnotherapist.
Hypnosis is portrayed in media in general. Manipulation, mind control. People think it's like a truth serum. My clients describe it as they're in control the whole time. It's definitely not.
I am a trained hypnotist, I'll have you know. I took Mark Savard's course on hypnotism personally.
Oh, no.
I knew you were going to say that, and I made you say it.
Yeah, it's dangerous.
I did. It's good. So did Summer, though. She worked for him for years and still, has on occasion. So, never let her put your 2 fingers on your forehead and yank your right arm. You're gone. You're just going to wake up, somewhere with your pants on backwards and, a weird crick in your neck. It's just going to be wrong.
Labor union banking requires experience and expertise.
Tell me about it.
Hi there. Labor unions get the advantage of our oversight and regulatory experience.
Get to the good part.
Hundreds of labor unions trust ABOC for their banking, including treasury management, investments, and construction loans like this one.
You worked on this job?
We sure did. Just ask your boss.
Okay. Why didn't you say so? Come on in.
Hey.
Come on. Come on.
Come on.
Come on. Come on.
ABOC is the brand name for Amalgamated Bank of Chicago. Member FDIC.
Chicago's Progressive Talk. WCPT 820.
20 seconds.
Yes, indeed. Episode. No, okay. Go back. Here we go. Here we come. Welcome back. So we have more questions from our chat room for Phil.
We don't.
But the main criticism of the Russian economy right now, and this is a quote on their economic system, is the central bank is unable to balance between inflation and the economy. They cannot. The quote is, balance between inflation and the economy cannot be maintained. Central bank has therefore been criticized for some time now by the Association of Entrepreneurs and Industrialists, in the same way that, by the way, Trump is complaining about Jerome Powell for not helping him, out of the mess he made by lowering interest rates, making money cheap so that they blow up the price of everything else just so that they can dig their way out of the hole. The financial institution did not raise interest rates out of destructive rage, but to curb inflation and keep the ruble stable is why they said they were doing it, and everybody's reacting to it. At the beginning of the war, the initial aim was to prevent citizens from withdrawing all their savings and exchanging them for foreign currency. Later, the central bank's main task was to offset the inflationary pressure generated by the amount of state money being pumped into the arms sector and the military. Now there is no more room to lower interest rates because inflation is at the upper end of the target corridor set by the central bank, said the head of the financial regulator, Elvira Nabulina. And
shut up.
Yep, Elvira Nabulina, that's her name. That's it. Yeah, absolutely. Who is also, I think, a billion.
They've been forcing the banks to put out huge loans to the military.
Right.
At vastly reduced rates, and that's unsustainable. So their banking system, has just been hemorrhaging cash to the military and the entire economy. I mean, 2% unemployment, sure, but everybody's involved in a military, some sort of, it's a war economy. They changed to a war economy about the first year into this conflict. So everything is connected to producing stuff that supports the war. And what are these soldiers going to come back to if the war stops tomorrow? They're going to come back to villages and towns that don't have, the unemployment rate is going to skyrocket because they're not going to need guys making shells anymore.
Right.
So again, Putin is increasingly painting himself into a corner, and it's I think both Trump and Putin are painting themselves into corners, and it gives me
Yeah.
pause for concern. I think we'll be okay, but cornered animals, that's when they're most dangerous. So.
Speaking of which, a little bit of breaking news. Trump has abruptly canceled Kushner and Witkoff's Pakistan trip this morning.
Yeah.
The president on Saturday scrapped plan for Iran peace talks, citing too much time wasted and confusion in Tehran's leadership. And darn, I thought these two sappy second-generation rich kid real estate guys would be the perfect people to bring everlasting peace. I just canceled the trip of my representatives going to Islamabad, Pakistan. This is what he actually wrote. The two in brackets there was added. Going is Islamabad, Pakistan, to meet with the Iranians. Too much time wasted on traveling, too much work. Besides, there is tremendous infighting and confusion within their leadership. Nobody knows who's in charge, including them. Also, we have all the cards. They have none. If they want to talk, all they have to do is call. So, yeah. So that's this is going better and better. Just every hour, it gets smarter and more concise. And yeah, it's not. Are you tired of winning, Johnny? I'm a little tired of winning. I think I'm a little
tired of winning.
I've got winner's exhaustion. I've told my people a little while ago that then they were I told my people a little while ago they were getting ready to leave, and I said, "Nope, you're not making an 18-hour flight to go there." The president said, "We have all the cards. They can call us anytime they want, but you're not going to be making any more 18-hour flights to sit around talking about nothing." It comes after Abbas Araghchi and his delegation left Islamabad after arriving Friday for talks with the Pakistani leaders. So it looks like they walked first. That our guys came days later than they were originally going to come. They bugged out. Trump acted like it was his idea, and off he went. And the question, initially the question was actually whether Vance was ultimately going to go again to bring the RZA, to bring the what the kids call the Riz, bring his guy liner magic, and show him where the sun shines. And he didn't go. And then now Jared and Steve Witkoff aren't going either. And I don't quite know what Jared's official title is these days. He's the Secretary of Magic Thinking, I think. I don't know that it's certainly not a Senate approved seat, but that he's negotiating on behalf of the United States as the head of a fund built by the Saudis. We have a guy who runs a Saudi wealth fund as our negotiator in peace talks. Like that, again, so many of these things. If Obama, if Biden,
it's so embarrassing to see these guys, because the other side of the equation have professionals, professional diplomats, negotiators, advisors. I mean, these are guys who know what they're doing. And by contrast, we have this clown show of these guys who are completely out of their depth, have no idea what they're doing, and it's obvious, it's publicly obvious that these guys don't know what they're doing, and they're having the opposing side's diplomatic corps dancing circles around them. and they're like marionettes. It's just I'm stunned to see what both the Pentagon and the State Department have become in just in just such a short period of time. It's just been because I used to interact with these guys all the time, and they were professionals.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it was the military or state or whatever, they knew what they were doing. These guys, we have some really good people on our team, and now we have this
a clown car,
circus.
Yeah, it's terrible. It's and again, I gotta say, it's better than it happening. It's odd, but like I don't trust that these guys would go there and actually accomplish something worthwhile and not make it worse. So it's hard to say if what's worse, them going or not going. It's just we're as the and again I've said this recently, but I've never felt a bigger kinship with the Iranian people because our countries are both run by like egomaniacal sociopaths who don't give a crap about the general public and believe that they are the last word on everything right now. Both groups. I mean, there's very little difference between Hegseth and Yehidi morally, ethically. They both think God's on their side. They're both basically yelling Allahu Akbar in two different languages, and the leadership is diluted, damaged, kooky. I don't know, like where it's the same as Trump. So it's really difficult to see whether the talks happening or not happening are the worst outcome. I mean, it seems, talk about a rock and a hard place. It seems like
the lunatics have taken over the asylum.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we got a few minutes left. I want to see, we got other questions, Johnny? Do we get through them?
One more question.
Okay. Yeah.
This is another one from Ed Brayman. Can you ask Philip why Russia sold 22 tons of gold this week?
Well, I mean, they're propping up their economy, aren't they? I mean, that's my initial. I'm not an economist, so I would be reluctant to speculate as to why they made that sale. That's my initial response is that they need liquidity and to stay buoyant because they really are. Their economy is absolutely grinding to a halt.
Yeah,
and that would be my guesstimate as to why they did it. But again, I'm not.
A lot of gold.
A lot of gold. It's a lot of reserves. You don't get rid of that for just for S's and giggles.
Right. It's also a shuffle of where they. A lot of that gold came from Africa. A lot of that stuff is the stuff they've been siphoning out of Darfur and Sudan and, over the last few years. We watched those Wagner trucks leaving during, a portion of the early part of the Ukraine war when they were starting to bug out some of the Wagner guys before they killed what's his name in the airplane crash. Like all of his guys were down there basically stirring up sectarian and civil war fights between the locals so that nobody would bug them as they left the country with trucks full of gold that went straight to Russia to help pay for all this crap. And now they're having to cash it in because their economy is contracting. It's a nightmare. So they're having to sell off assets. And that's the only asset that, like obviously the sanction part of it, they'll find ways around it, but it's not like Bitcoin's doing really well right now. So they're having to revert back to, this may be how they feed the right-wing machine over here because all of them do the gold is real money ads and are tied to these gold trading organizations. Those aren't disconnected, right? Those organizations are disconnected from the skeevy world of gold, which, by the way, is a relatively useless, pretty rock. Just for the record, you can't eat it. It's so malleable. It's easily to create fraud out of it. It's a metal that's so malleable you could change the surface of it enough to hide where it came from. So that's why it's perfect for like theft. But it's ultimately, what is it? It's shiny in a certain way. Trump likes it. Maybe that's it. Maybe they sold it to him. Maybe we're going to come out and it's going to be gold columns. That. Yeah, that he's going to coat the
right.
Right. That he's just that Trump bought it all. I wouldn't be surprised if Trump did Russia a solid, and we're going to find out that, they're like America shored up its gold reserves, and because Trump bought Russian gold from them, under the table. None of us would be surprised. So anyways, Phil, when's the next episode?
This week, tomorrow, 8 p.m. Local time here in Kiev. Check whatever that is in your time zone. We sat down while he was here for the security conference. Jacob Karsbo, who is a former high-ranking official in the Danish intelligence service. So we talk. He was in the Middle East. He was obviously he's been all throughout this region.
Check it out.
And of course,
check it out tomorrow and subscribe to the channel, and also subscribe to our channel on YouTube, Infotainment Wars. Find it there. Go on YouTube, and thank you guys so much. And Johnny Million, you're awesome. And I'll see you guys next week.
No, you.
Take care. Take care of yourselves and take care of somebody else. Okay, bye.
Bye.
There you go. Yeah. Thanks, CPT. Thank you, Chicago.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't give you more of a window to pitch it, but
that's okay.
We got it out there, so it's good. And I'll see you on Wednesday. Johnny, you're awesome. Be well. I gotta go jump in the car and drive to Vegas. So,
you get home.
Yeah.
All right.
Peace and be wild. All right. See you later, gentlemen. All right. There they go.
Bye.
All right. Whoops. My little movie thing didn't do. Hello, guys. And thank you guys. So I'm going to kick Chicago out of there so that I don't hear the feed. And thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you for the super chat, Sal Vickery and Mr. Tim Pugh. I don't know how do I read that? Tim Pugh. And Bingo, thank you so much. And Surrender Monkey, thank you so much. You might be shit at your job when you bankrupt America when cosplaying Russia. Yeah, exactly. And Bingo says, believe the survivors. Agreed. And Mr. Tim said, fuck Putin. Yes, agreed. I showed that on the screen. And thank you, Hal Vickery, on your space in the landscape chat. Thank you for visiting both. And once again, the peace negotiations are on hold. I would argue, my dear friend Hal Vickery, what peace negotiations? I mean, they've always been a farce. Let's be completely honest. This is not a situation where any of us actually believed this is how it was going to work. Hold on, and I got to bug out and shut everything down here. All right, I got to hit the road. Wish me luck. I got to get back to my girl and in time to make her dinner. So I will see you guys later. Thank you for your support. Thank you for the super chats. Thank you for your eyeballs and your ear holes. Is the most valuable thing you can give anybody, and I don't take it for granted. Thanks to everybody who is a member on the YouTube channel and Patreon subscriber. I hope you enjoyed the comedy show last night. It was a good time. We started a little bit later because George Wallace came in and he was doing a set, and he didn't want to be live streamed, which I understand. So we started it a little bit later just when I was going on. So I didn't get Charlene's set because there wasn't a way to turn it on and off. We could have put I got to come up with like a censored screen, like this part of the show is redacted. But anyways, I will see you guys later on. Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you soon. Okay. And I must have some sort of this business. There we go. Thank you guys so much. Thank you for the likes. Yeah, hit the thumbs up. Go ahead. And thank you to the maggots who are here for the thumbs down. I see we got a couple. You really do help us with the algorithm when you give us a thumbs down in ways you really don't understand. If you're on Facebook, please give me an angry emoji on your way out the door. That would be really helpful. And on Twitch, I got to install the emote wall while I'm working. But I will see you guys later on. All right, let me sign out of this one. Get it out of the way. Screens are it's always something.
Yeah, yeah. If they ask, I forgot it. You ain't seen nothing. Yeah, yeah. We ain't saying nothing. Black bar over my past, can't track this. Screenshots cropped out, can't catch this. If it looks too wild on the axis, highlight, right click, boom, redact this. Redact this. Blur that face, can't fact check the madness. Throwing out page from the bad habits atlas. If the story get messy in the ad-libs, highlight, right click, boom, redact this. I was young, I was dumb, I was scrolling. Type way too much, hit send, heart swollen. Now I keep receipts like a lawyer with a folder. But anything risky, get hit with the toner. Whole group chat, got tails, I ain't claim. If my name pop up, that's a typo, blame. Who's that in the pic, man, that ain't go strange. That's a random stranger with a very close face. On the stand of my friends, I plead don't recall. If they ask for the tape, it's a missing file. If they pull up the clip, that's deep fake style. If they show me the proof, I just smile like redact this. Black bar over my past, can't track this. Screenshots cropped out, can't catch this. If it looks too wild on the axis, highlight, right click, boom, redact this. Redact this. Blur that face, can't fact check the madness. Torn out page from the bad habits atlas. If the story get messy in the ad-libs, highlight, right click, boom, yeah. If it hit too close, that's a rumor I heard. If the dateline match, that's a clerical error. If the outfit match, that's a popular shirt. If the tattoo match, that's a stock photo search. I'm allergic to question, coughing the light. I just edit the ending, soften the bite. Take the worst 3 parts of the night, then slice like fun was had and we were not. Every X got a chapter I seal. Every text got a gap in the reel. I ain't lying, I'm curating the reveal. Just trimming little bits of the raw, real deal. If you saw, you didn't. If you know, you didn't. If you talk, I'm clipping. If they ask, we glitching. Swipe that name out, crop that frame out. If it made me look foul, delete then fade out. Redact this. Black ball over my past, can't track this. Screenshots cropped out, can't